Good morning, everyone. Hello, bonjour, hadi. Welcome to the Facebook Live where me, Sage Lacerte, will be sharing on behalf of Moose Hide Campaign about some of the beauties of Indigenous masculinity. So I'll introduce myself. Hadi Sage Lacerte Sadni Tebes Nachalya Lakongan Keo. Saikrana Lashabu Injan Yinkaktane Keo. So in the carrier language, in my language, I shared my name is Sage Lacerte. I'll also say my pronouns are she, her. I acknowledge the beautiful territory where I was born and raised, the territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, Songhees and Esquimalt nations. And just introduce that I come from the Carrier Nation, which is in central BC, where my parents both came from and brought us here to work and for school and to grow our families. So very, very grateful for this moment today. I'm the national ambassador of the Moose Hide Campaign. Wear lots of hats in this space. I'm also a birth worker and a doula, and founded the first Indigenous Women's Impact Investment Collective in Canada called Sage Initiative. Today, I really want to welcome each of you into the room to explore the beauty in Indigenous masculinity and share 5 things that you can do to become more involved. And for our men and boys who are listening or watching, just to share a little bit about how masculinity and sensitivity are not mutually exclusive, and that thinking is not a masculine trait and feeling is not necessarily a feminine trait, and that these are just components of human life that each of us have and that are gifts that each of us have. So if you don't know too much about the Moose Hide Campaign, it's all right. I'm here to tell you we're a grassroots movement that has been recognized nationally that works to end violence towards women and children in Canada by engaging men and boys in ceremony, asking them to speak up and to take action. So I'll tell you about the very first moose that started the campaign, because most people ask, like, hey, what's the deal with moose? We're moose hunters, and in 2011, my dad and my sister, Paul and Raven Lacerte, were hunting along the Highway of Tears, Highway 16, which has become known as the Highway of Tears as a result of dozens of women, mostly Indigenous women, having gone missing or been murdered along that highway. And reflecting on that sorrow that has occurred here, when they hunt a moose, they took the hide home and we tanned it up and we cut it up on our dining room table, and we made the first moose hide pins way back in 2011 that really signify how significant of an issue this is, that the women and children in this country are not safe. And we wanted to do something about that and spark dialogue by shining a light on this significant issue to create change. So now there are thousands of communities across Canada who have joined us in this movement and are getting involved. This year, we gifted our 3 millionth piece of moose hide. 3 million of these are pinned to people's shirts across Canada, where when you look at it, it's obvious there's something attached to your shirt and people say, hey, what is that? And a really beautiful response is to say, thank you for asking. It's called the Moose Hide Campaign, and I'm wearing it because I don't think violence towards women and children is okay. And I don't think it's love. And just having that very simple dialogue and connection and sense of understanding is so beautiful. And it challenges the behavior that leads to violence by creating a culture of healthy masculinities where we can create that dialogue and we can talk to each other and feel safe to talk to each other. There are many campaigns. I want to talk a little bit about how we emerged and why it's so important. There are many campaigns that demonstrate substantial attention and focus on the struggles of Indigenous women, and rightfully so, considering the social and economic conditions that women and Indigenous women in Canada experience. And so we saw that there was kind of this like both theoretical but also practical absence of work on men and masculinity in the space, keeping in mind that in 2011, this was pre-Me Too movement. This was pre-MMIWG inquiry. And so there are other movements that you might be able to recognize, like the White Ribbon Campaign, or Next Gen Men, for example. So each of us have our own unique theory of change that calls men and boys into the circle, or folks who identify with masculinity, and asking them to come join the conversation and become more involved. So because we're missing out on some of those theoretical and practical pieces, it also means that we have fewer policies and social programs for men and boys that specifically speak to masculinity. And that includes those who are trans and who identify with masculine traits as well. One thing that I really wanted to share, and it's probably one of the first tips that I have, is a book that I think is so beautiful, which is Indigenous Men and Masculinities, Legacies, Identities, Regeneration by Robert Alexander Ines and Kim Anderson. So this book is often, it's a college level literature. It has some interviews and stories, but it really just talks about some of the historical context and the ways in which our men and boys and masculinity has had colonial impressions that have, and really the book seeks to deepen our understanding of the ways Indigenous men and those who identify with masculinities and male identity perform those male identities, why and how they perform those things, and the consequences to that performance, and the attachment to those identities and to that performance. So like the way that we carry ourselves, the way we speak to each other, the way we communicate with each other, the way we look. And what I hear often is men sharing that sometimes even when they're together in a room, when there's a room full of men, that they still feel alone and that they don't feel like they can talk openly to each other. And so it brings loneliness and a sense of isolation. Even when you're still together and you're still connected, you can still feel alone in a room because of that lack of connection. And I have to share that, speaking to some of the learnings that I've gleaned from this book, it's really important to note that the performance of Indigenous masculinity has been profoundly impacted by colonization and the imposition of mindsets surrounding like white supremacy, the belief that some are better than others or more deserving or more worthy. The same thing goes for heteronormativity, thinking that when someone perpetuates heteronormativity, that is the norm and that's what's to be expected, and that anything outside of heteronormativity is considered to be gay. And so you hear that a lot come up, that's so gay. Or young boys in school, if they say something caring to their friend, then they'll use the phrase no homo because it's considered to be attached to gayness. Friendship is considered to be associated with gayness in a lot of our culture for our young boys. And so that's left such an impact and a legacy on our boys and our men. Also, our women, children, elders, our communities, our families. This impression of all of our gendered roles that have been imposed on us, it really affects us as a whole. And so something that we're trying to do at the campaign is seek a regeneration of some of those positive masculinities and regeneration of masculinities that will restore like healthy and harmonious relationships that allow for our boys to be boys in the way that they see fit, and to be sentient beings, and to be able to communicate with each other, communicate their feelings, and not have to feel so isolated and alone. So I would ask the question, what do men need to challenge the internalized oppressive behaviors of men? And there was a call, there was a call for the birth of a new cultural continuum, in the healing continuum that has emerged. And I'll share that this has been led by women for a really long time, by women serving organizations, by folks who work in the gender-based violence space. But we're asking for the men to stand up. We're saying, where are all of the men? Because these women's organizations, these women gender-serving organizations, gender-based violence organizations, we've been here a long time, but we're saying, where are the men? We're asking the men and boys to stand up. And what is preventing the men and boys from standing up and from speaking up? And it's that culture that we're hoping to have a little bit of an influence on. So part of the answer can be found a little bit in what I was sharing about the historical lens and how colonialism has affected the path of our men and our boys. And specifically with Indigenous masculinities, we find that there is an European and Christian influence that at the time of contact felt very like testosterone driven and ego-centered, and was insatiable. So always seeking more, a very individualistic mindset. But in Indigenous worldview, that's not true. In Indigenous worldview, we see someone as being very well, if they're very caring and very giving. The more contact that our nations had during the time of contact with settler and Europeans, the more disoriented our men became, disoriented from our Indigenous worldview. And men now struggle to find their place, whether it's from a disconnection from culture or from that initial disorientation that has pulled us from some of those values of respect and showing integrity and being a sentient, beautiful being who's willing to be their full selves and recognize that as worthy and beautiful. I just want to say it's never too late to reach out to a friend or a family member. There are many men, and we see this in rates of suicide and incarceration across Turtle Island. And it's never too late to reach out to someone, a friend or a family member, someone you trust, a counselor, and to say, hey, like I could really use an ear to talk to. This is what's coming up for me. And I promise people will always lean into that connection. And so I want to give you 5 tools, a few things that you can do that will teach boys the true meaning of love, do the work to support our brothers, and make sure that we're going along that journey with them. So it's our vision to distribute 10 million pieces of moose hide, ask 1 million Canadians to stand with us on Moose Hide Campaign Day, May 11th, 2023. Mark your calendar. This is a day of ceremony and celebration for us to come together across Canada. Last year, more than 400,000 people joined us. And so this year, I'd personally like to invite you to come join us. So mark your calendar, May 11th, 2023. You can also go to the Moose Hide campaign website and we will gift you a moose hide pin totally free. So you can click order now and we will send them to your home or to your workplace totally free. We also have the option to have an animal free or a vegan hide pin so that anyone can feel comfortable wearing them. Take a photo and share them on social media at Moose Hide Campaign to share your message and why you choose to wear the pin. And the last thing I'll say is that Moose Hide Campaign belongs to your community. It's our family story is only one story of many. Half of all women in Canada experience violence in their lifetime. And so we encourage you to start a Moose Hide Campaign day or event in your own community, host a kiosk, order some shirts and pins, have an assembly, ask everyone to come together for a men's circle or to take training around cultural sensitivity and gender-based violence. My favorite aspect is that we're here to heal the ailment in our society that says that we can treat women and children with anything but love and respect and integrity. So we're asking you to create a cultural shift with us, and that can be popular culture. I'm wearing a Moose Hide shirt. You can check out the Moose Hide Campaign shop and wear a Moose Hide shirt to the mall or a party or to your workplace and say, hey, I want to bring this up and make a difference by starting dialogue about this important issue. Those are the tips that I really wanted to make sure that each of you have. I really appreciate the opportunity to share on behalf of the Moose Hide Campaign about some of the historical context, but also the realities that our men and boys experience today. Again, I want to say one last time, it is never too late to reach out. And there is always someone there, a friend, a family member, or a member of the community who is there to listen and recognize your beauty and to share an ear that you can share any of the things that have been on your mind. There's always someone there for you, and we love you very much. So, Masi Cho, I hope to see you at Moose Hide Campaign Day on May 11th. Thank you very much.